Hello everyone! I've missed, yeah, I thought I'd rectify that, and I've been doing a bit of sewing, and a few people have been expressing interest and wondering how I do some of the certain things I've been doing with my sewing, so I thought I would jump on a stream and show you some of those things. Yeah, how are we all doing? Hey Techniac, how you doing? Lovely to see you, lovely to see you. I miss Matt's streams. Like one a fortnight is just not enough. It's not enough. 2 weeks is too long between streams, I think. Yeah. Cool. Yeah, before I jump in, I just want to say a huge thank you to my patrons. Yeah, particularly as I haven't been putting out that much content lately. So thank you so much for your incredible support. Yeah, obviously I have that full-time job now, so yes, I the money is less important than it was previously, in that yeah, if you feel you're not getting your money's worth, then I won't hold it against you, but I am very grateful because yeah, projects still cost money and stuff, and it's really wonderful to have your support, so thank you so much. I really appreciate it. You're all awesome humans. We've got some Discord people. Hello. Hey, we've even got Eric. What time is it there, Eric? Oh, good morning from Melbourne. Hello, how you all doing down there? I know it's a bit crazy with the COVID times down there at the moment. I hope you're doing all right. I guess you're kind of used to it by now, though. You're all lockdown queens and kings at the moment, and you know, just royal type folk, because you had some very long lockdowns, you poor loves. Hi, hello Village Slayer. Hi Andre. Oh, thank you Andre, that's really lovely to hear. Thank you. Yeah, I hope I'm still producing good content. I still try and get stuff up when I do something I feel is pretty cool, like certain toys that I made recently. I was pretty happy with that one, so yeah, I put the instructions for that up together. So, oh, thank you, Mariday. Mariday says, I don't know how long I'll be able to stay, but may your stitches be strong and your seams be straight. Thank you, Mariday. I hope my seams are straight too. That's always the challenge. Actually, recently I put a Fresnel lens in front of my sewing machine, and oh my god, I so recommend it to anyone who sews. I'll jump into my 3-way mode. Oh no, I put this in front of the camera. There we go. Got that out of the way. Yeah, a bit of light now. Yeah, so I put this is a Fresnel lens, and I put it right in front of my sewing machine so that I can see the foot really well from where I sit, and oh my god, huge difference. Everything is so neat. It's amazing. I'm just like, put magnifying glasses everywhere. Like, I do have glasses, like, but they're very low. I probably should get tested again. It was a while ago when I got these, but they're very low. Like, then my eyes aren't bad, but just having a magnifying glass makes me so much neater at whatever I'm doing. I'm just like, Fresnel lenses everywhere. Just put them everywhere, because like, dang, so good. Oh, I'm sorry. 5.5 months was enough. This week kind of sucked not to see peeps again. Yeah, you poor thing. I'm sorry. Hopefully we sort this all out really soon. So you're streaming in your Discord status and thought, yeah, why not? Oh, I didn't even know Discord did that. There you go. That's neat. I didn't know it was plugged in. I don't even know how that's set up. Cool. Well, yay. I'm glad it does that, I guess. Yeah. Okay. Yes, soldering iron for sure. And not only that, like, because it's sort of angled, it will take the smoke away from your face, you know, with a soldering iron. So like, go up that way, sort of like a fume hood, but not really. But yeah, I definitely reckon soldering, resin art, anything you're doing that's like small, just do it with a lens. Like, just, yeah, you don't have to. Yeah, I don't know. It's great. Discord detects OBS automatically. Neat. There you go. Cool. Huh. Sometimes I have OBS open when I'm just like recording stuff for myself though. Well, you know, like for videos, which I don't make that many of anymore. Oh god, that was hard. Making videos is hard. Has anyone ever made videos here? Oh my god. Anyway, so sewing. We are sewing. That is the plan. I am partway through making a dress. So I have been posting little bits and bobs. So this is part of the skirt. This is the skirt. And I've been pleating. I'll turn the camera around. that's my lens. You're just gonna have to deal with that, I think. And I'll get some focus. Yeah, so this is part of the skirt. This is the waistband, and I've been pattern matching everything. So like you can kind of see, these are all pleats. So these yeah, actually pleated, and then I've actually perfectly pattern matched them so they look like there's actually a seam there and you can barely see it. And I'm pretty proud of myself, in case you can't tell. I might see if I can angle this light so we get a bit more light so you can see stuff. I don't know. I've never done a sewing stream before, so it's a little, I'm kind of feeling this out as we go along. Thanks for being here with me on this journey. So yeah, I pattern match these seams perfectly, and then I also pattern match the waistband, and it's kind of almost got this kaleidoscope effect now. Like from a distance, it starts to look quite bizarre in like kind of an interesting way. I'm kind of into it. It's a little weird, but you know, whatever. It's fun. Yeah. Oh, comments. Can't wait for the Void Star peeps to come in. Oh, are they coming in? Oh gosh. Did you post it, Techniac? Okay. I hope they don't get bored. I'm very not electronicsy today. We're doing very old school crafting, which is actually, you know, more my forte and more where I come from. Really, is the old school. 3D printing is, yeah, how I got into a lot of technical other stuff. Though I've always been software-y. But anyway, Billy, how fast are you sewing that you need a fume hood for your machine? That's hilarious. I'm actually a really slow sewer. I used to sew industrially. I used to work like on industrial machines, which are really cool. If you've never seen an industrial sewing machine, they're pretty freaking neat. They actually sit inside a bed of oil. Like underneath the machine is a big tank filled with oil, because the machines run so quick that they need constant lubrication, so it's always picking up that oil and running it through the machine. You actually have a little bubbler on top where you can watch it go round. So they're pretty cool and kind of scary. I've seen someone put a needle right through their finger once. I don't know whether that's too graphic to talk about. I won't go into too much detail. But yeah, they're pretty scary. But I'm a really slow sewer. I'm very particular. I learned in I learned sewing when I was much younger, but I really got good at sewing when I was an apprentice costume maker. And in the costuming world, you really have to make sure everything is really nice and perfect. And particularly, I was working stage, so particularly really strong. And that usually means a lot of handwork and a lot of like really finicky finesse kind of things. And when you're doing period anything, like as in doing it in the Victorian era or whatever, people just sewed a lot better then. They just had a lot more time to do it. And yeah, they just spent a lot more time doing it, so they just were very particular about all sorts of things. So yeah, I learned to be very particular with my sewing, so I'm very slow, and that's part of the reason I think that I don't do it for a living, is because I never make my wage back. People aren't willing to pay it, so that's kind of fair, you know. Now I sew for funsies, and I teach other people to sew, you know, at my job now, which for anyone who hasn't heard, I now work at a makerspace, which is so good. Oh my gosh, I've never had a job that just fit me so well. I am so happy there. I actually sing at work sometimes. I'm that happy. It's like being a Disney princess, you know? It's just like, oh, so good. Pattern matching, you insane person. Yeah, it is insane. And I think with pattern matching, it's one of those things that you sort of have to cut and sew as you go along a little bit, because like the pattern obviously has a length that it repeats. In this one, it's what, 15 centimeters, 12 centimeters, something like that, cut a few inches. So it's that length that it repeats at. And so all your measurements when you're trying to match things up have to be in that realm. So this is actually quite a bit larger than, so this waist is quite a bit larger than it needs to be for me, but I want it all to like pattern match perfectly. So I'm just going to have a bow that ties around the waist to like cinch it in a little bit, because I've lost quite a bit of weight. It would have been fine a few months ago, but I've been losing quite a bit of weight, which is good. I've been meaning to. It's not because I'm unwell or anything. Yeah, so pattern matching is kind of one of those things that you sort of have to feel out as you go along a little bit. Like you start by cutting a couple of pieces, you sew those together, then you cut these other pieces around it, and it just kind of grows outwards from there. So yeah, I've been doing a bit of that. So I have a back and front piece cut that will attach this waistband. I have, where's it gone? I have sewn the back. So this is the back. this is the yoke, the top of a shirt, especially on men's shirts. If you think about a formal men's shirt, it's called the yoke. That's this top here. So I have cut that bit out. I have gathered a little bit in the center here onto there, and I've sewn up one dart, which is what I posted on Twitter. And this dart is quite neat. I'll see if I can get it in the camera. Quite neat in look. So obviously it looks like a normal dart from the front. You're gonna get a bit of focus. Come on, camera. Come on, there we go. So there is a dart just here. I haven't pressed it, so you can kind of still see it. It's a bit obvious. You can see the break in the pattern as well. And inside is the really special part about the dart. Up the top, you normally would have some tails. You'd normally have some ends of strings, which you can kind of see down here. There's a back tack, which is where you go backwards and forwards at the beginning of a seam, and that's to kind of act as a knot. On a sewing machine, you can't knot the thread, which is how you would normally secure it at the beginning and end. So you can't knot it on a sewing machine. So you go backwards and forwards a little bit, and that acts kind of like a knot. And normally you would need that at both ends of a seam, but on this dart, I don't have it. And I thought I might demonstrate how to achieve this, because I tried to explain it on Twitter, but I didn't do a very good job. So we'll do it now. We'll do one now, because there's a few darts on here. So we'll do some darts while I talk. So yeah, this is a dart. I've marked it out here on my pattern. It's a little hard to see, but it runs along here. I've drawn a little triangle in an erasable pen. A lot of people clip the points here on their darts. They clip down at the seam allowance here and here to show where the dart is. And it's easy because when you're cutting a big stack of fabric, you can just clip and go through all the layers. But I never do that because you weaken the seam there. You actually are cutting into the seam allowance, and then the seam allowance can't be doing its job, which is holding the pieces together. So I never ever trim notches into things unless I'm releasing the tension in the seam, and we might have a look at that on the neckline potentially. We'll see how far we get. But yeah, I always avoid chopping notches out of anything, and I think it's a huge place where people go wrong, because it's very unnecessary. You can just put a pin through your fabric and then draw a little mark at each of the layers. Like, you really don't need to be chopping into them, and I really wouldn't. I would recommend heavily against it, because yeah, you're weakening your seam, and you want your fabric to last. And the thing with sewing too is that you're weakening your seam allowance, which is the part of the fabric that is tucked in. So, you know, when you have a seam in your clothing and there's the bit that sticks in on the inside, that's called a seam allowance for anyone who is new to sewing. Yeah, and you're weakening that part of the fabric there, and yeah, it's just unnecessary. And I really think clothing, the amount of energy that goes into clothing is, like, in terms of carbon footprint, in terms of environmental impact, is really, really wild. And when you start looking into it, it's kind of worrisome. Clothing is a huge polluter of the environment. And so if you can make your clothes last a bit longer, then you should. You should think about, yeah, how to make them last as long as they possibly can. And in the old days, a lot of that was recutting and reshaping your garment into something else, because yeah, you probably had a bit of leftover fabric. You could change, you know, the hemline, you could change sleeves and stuff, so you're really getting a long life out of that garment. And I wish we were a little more thoughtful about it in modern times, because yeah, it's one of those unseen polluters of the environment. And yeah, if we can make them last a little longer, we should. I might switch back to here. Oh, what do we got? Sewing stream must be the weirdest thing YouTube has ever suggested to me. You're in for a wild ride. Sewing is fascinating. I agree. I think sewing is fascinating. You know, we spend all our lives in clothing, and unless you do sew, you probably haven't thought much about it. And yeah, maybe you could. Maybe we could do that together today. I haven't pinned this quite right. Just repinning that. I also always pin sideways. You'll kind of notice my pins come out the side here, and this is for two reasons. One, it makes it easier to pull out your pins as you're going along sewing, and number two, it allows you to, it actually is a better way to pin. So when you're sewing, you have these feed dogs under here. These little grippy bits are called feed dogs, and they actually move the fabric through the sewing machine, so you're not pulling it through at all. It pulls through itself, and because they're only underneath, it can mean that the underside creeps a little more than the top side, and that's the main thing you're trying to avoid when you're moving fabric, beyond like obviously getting the seam straight and where it should be, is trying to make sure that the bottom one isn't creeping more than the top. And this sewing machine is pretty cool because it has this foot that sort of helps with that, but it's not perfect. So why the reason I pin like this is because if you pin vertically, and I'll do it so we can see, if you pin in this direction, which is another way that is a very common way that people pin, and they pull the pins out as they go this way. But what can actually happen is that this can still creep either side of that pin. It can kind of creep up a little bit that way and creep up a little bit that way, just because of the way that pin is situated. But if it's sideways, it can't creep either side of that pin mark. So you know every way you're pinning that it's definitely going to stay exactly there. And it also means when you're trying to match up seams, like say you were doing quilting, or say you were matching up the seam on an underarm where there's two seams that are coming together, so you end up with like a cross. You end up with like, yeah, an intersection that looks like this. You actually can put this into the join between the two seam allowances, the join like into the seam itself, so that you so that it matches that exact point right there, that exact point. Anyway, I am rambling. I'm rambling so much. I just, sorry everyone. I want to make my son a Jawa costume, and I have no idea how to start. What's a Jawa costume? I'm not sure I know what Jawa is. But if you could explain that, I could have a little look. All my cheat machines broke at some point. They started ripping the thread. Interesting. That could be a tension problem potentially. I don't want to say for sure, but there are a few problems like, yeah, that can look like that. So this dart will not be started like a normal seam. So if you're learning to sew, just ignore what I'm saying right now, and what I'll be saying for the next few minutes, because I'll be doing a couple of darts. There's a few on here. I think there's 6 total, and I've already done 1, so we've got 5 to do. So this is the bobbin thread. It's coming up from underneath the bobbin. This is the one coming from my spool on top of the machine. So what I'm actually going to do is thread this bobbin thread back through this needle backwards, and then pull it up through the rest of the machine, and that's how we get rid of the tail at the front. And it's very, very hard to thread a needle backwards because of the shape of the needle, actually. So I'm going to be using a needle threader to do that, and pop that in there and pull that through, and now we've got our bobbin thread through our needle. If I can grab it, I can. There we go. Okay, so now my bobbin thread, the one from underneath, which actually lives in here, I have some lines drawn on here, but there's a bobbin in here, believe me, little spool of thread. Now my bobbin thread is threaded through my needle, which is very strange. This is not normal. So if you're learning to sew, ignore this. And now I am going to just tie a knot here, just a good old granny knot, so it doesn't go anywhere. Tie that in there. And now I'm actually going to pull my thread up from the top. So that knot slides along right the way through the machine. This dart's not particularly long, so I just need a bit of thread. So I'm just going to pull it up to about there, and it's kind of loose on top, and that's fine. It probably won't tangle. We'll give it a go. So yes, now I have my bobbin thread up through my machine, and this is now where I start sewing my dart. So I'm going to pop it in here, and with darts you want to start just slightly above your dart point, like the point of the dart. You want to start slightly above it, and you want to do about 3 stitches right along the very edge of the fabric. You do your best to go right the way along, and I'm actually going to do the first one with a hand wheel so I can be quite accurate with it. Get right in there like that. You'll also notice I am sewing with a sort of strange foot. It's an open-toed foot, as in the toe at the front of the foot is got a big gap in the middle, and it's actually so I can see what I'm doing. This isn't the best for everything because, like, when you're sewing right on the edge like I am now, it actually can sometimes lift up this little bit here. So you got to watch what you're doing, but it is really, really handy to be able to see everything you're doing leading up to that that needle itself. So anyway, let's do some sewing. I'm gonna start. So I'm gonna do 3 stitches really close to the front of this, really close to the edge, as close as I can make it to the edge of this fabric. And now I'm gonna start following my line down, and I'm gonna remove this pin before it gets to my needle. So remove that now, and then start following this line down. These darts are not super well fitted. Like, some darts will have quite a bit of shaping in them, and then you might even need to like hand tack them together because it can be quite hard when they're different shapes to get them aligned. I actually ran over that pin that time. This is actually sort of an advantage of these really thin flower head pins. You can sort of run over them sometimes. Every now and again you'll hit one though and it'll bend. You potentially break your needle, so it's a risk. You should be pulling them out beforehand, but I still do it all the time. So yeah, I've reached like the end here, and now I'm going to do that reverse stitch like I was talking about before. So you go back a couple of stitches. Oh, we've gone, this is interesting. Did I run out of bobbin thread? I ran out of bobbin thread. Oh, look at that. This is the the not advantage to having my bobbin thread covered in lines. So we actually ran out of bobbin thread about here, which is fine. I'll come back and go over here. So we're not the neatest in the world, but up here where it matters, there are no threads. And this is really nice, particularly on a dart, because darts, when you press them flat and open, will sometimes have a little bit of bulk there from you doing that back tack, that backwards and forwards stitch, and the threads themselves. So if you can get rid of that bulk, it's really nice. So that's why it's important to have it up there, and why we do it, and why we go to all that trouble. So yes, I am going to do a bobbin. This is a good time to show you what it looks like to start off a bobbin, which I think you could just see on my little display up here. So I've got that granny knot still on this thread here, granny knot. So I'm just going to trim that off. That goes in the bin. And now I'm just threading up my machine for winding on a new bobbin. So you don't buy bobbins, well you can, but like, why would you? You just have the spool itself. This is called a bobbin, but you don't buy them full of thread already. You normally would just wind them on with the thread that you're using. So do it down here so we can see. I'm threading my bobbin, threading my bobbin. There's a little, unthreading my bobbin. There's a little hole just the top here, where you can put the thread through. You don't have to do it this way, but I like doing it this way because it's a little neater on the inside. And yeah, sometimes you can lose the last few meters to, oh, it's just too fluffy. We're just too fluffy. Sometimes you can lose the last few meters to tangles if you just wrap the thread around, because yeah, it's not as neat. So yes, just threading it through that hole in the top. And now that goes on this little winder here. There's just a winder, and I engage it, and then I put my foot down, and it starts to wind the thread on. And you can probably maybe see the spool moving that around, and I'm just going to trim that little tail off now. So I'm just going to fill that up. It's a little loud, and we're going to read the comments. Sorry. It's like how Bonds ships Aussie cotton to China to make clothes just to ship them back here again. Yeah, isn't it sad that Bonds took their manufacturing away from Australia? They used to be my favorite underwear brand, and yeah, they are no longer, because I bought some Bonds undies right after the move, and I had a pair for like, I don't know, 5+ years, because, you know, it still worked. I had a pair for like many years, and that pair was fine. And then I went and got the new ones that had been made in China, and they broke in like a couple of months. They started to wear through, and my old ones that have been going for like 5 years were still right as rain. I'm like, well, I guess I'm not buying Bonds anymore. Isn't that sad? So yes, I was a bit sad about all of that. The only disadvantage to having my Fresnel lens is that the machine is now a bit harder to thread. Normally this is a much quicker exercise. I think I need to cut like a little loop out of the top of this Fresnel lens. I need to make a proper mount for it too. Right now it's just like sticky taped on. It's mega dodge. But I think I sort of just wanted to see that it worked before I went to too much effort to make a proper 3D printed mount or something, you know. Yeah, okay, so we're threaded again. We've got bobbin thread again. I just got to bring the bobbin thread up through this little hole here, and the way you do that is actually by threading the machine. So even though I'm about to unthread this top thread again because we're doing more darts, I will thread it back up again for the now. So yes, we will poke a little thread in here. Oh gosh, there we go. And it's just been tangled, so I just gotta, there we go, bring it down, bring it back up again, and now it will have brought up the bobbin thread for us. So now that bobbin thread is coming out of that hole, which is where you want it, because coming out of there is no good. Cool, okay. Thread it again. Now we've got a reverse thread. I'm gonna try a reef knot, because I reckon a reef knot might just slip backwards through that needle, and if it does, that would be bloody nice. So let's try a reef knot. It just has a smaller bulk than the granny knot I did before, so see, it's barely visible. So we'll see if we can pull that backwards up through the needle, because if we can, awesome. It might help it a little. Yes, cool. So now I don't need to thread it backwards. I can just pull up this, which is great. I'm a happy lady. Cool. All right, we're threaded backwards again. We can do some more darts. So there's a couple more on the front. Oh, I probably need to finish this one off. I'll do that after I've done this dart. Yes, still need to finish that one off. Talking and doing. Time to reload. Oh, reload the bobbin. Yes. Basically, I'm not sure how to make patterns for costumes, says Lee. Oh, okay. That is a whole thing. Pattern making is, I love pattern making. It's one of my favorite things to do. Pattern making is kind of very mathsy and geometry-ish. Like, it's all about unfolding nets. And so if you've ever done 3D modeling and then like meshed it with a texture, it's kind of got that vibe. I really, really enjoy it. A book I can recommend is called Pattern Making for Fashion Design, and it's by Helen Joseph Armstrong. It's sort of a textbook that a lot of places will teach you from, and it just has, I wish I had it here. I took it to work actually to show it to someone else who also wanted to learn to pattern make. So I don't have a copy of it here, but it is this great big thick Bible basically that will tell you how to pattern make anything. So it shows you all different necklines, all different collars, all different shirt styles, like just everything. And they have a ladies version and a men's version, I think, as well. And yeah, they will teach you how to make a basic block, and then how to a block being like a basic pattern for a top and a skirt and pants and stuff and sleeve, and then how to alter that into other designs. And yeah, that's the one I can recommend if you're learning. It is awesome book. That's how I learned a lot. But yeah, also just look at like I don't know if America's similar, but here we have like trade schools. We call them TAFE, tertiary something, but they're like trade schools. And just check out trade schools, because often they have night classes and things like that, you know, like this is a trade that's been around for a really long time, and people are out there with skills. So well worth utilizing those people. It's a physical task, so it's best to learn in the physical world. I just realized I haven't actually drawn a lot of these darts on. I was like, oh, I guess I'll do that later. Or maybe my pen's faded because it's a heat sensitive pen. Yeah, so it could have just faded. So I'm just drawing on these darts now. So yeah, just laying my pattern back over, and you'll see like I have to move my pattern a bit, and that's because fabric stretches and paper doesn't. So I'm just, yes, drawing on all these darts. And yeah, like I said, this is a pen that is, oh, didn't do a very good job there. This pen is erases with heat, so it'll be fine. And this is actually a pattern piece that I took from a dress I really loved. So that's another thing. If you're getting into making your own designs, learning to take a pattern from an existing garment is not the hardest thing in the world, and really worthwhile, because then you can duplicate things you already love. And there's probably videos out there on that. I would think so. Though maybe that's an idea for me. It'll probably be a little short course. It'll be a few videos, because there's some fundamental skills involved. Like it's not too complicated, but there is a bit to it, you know. But yeah, it's probably a good place to get into making your own stuff. Because then you can recreate stuff you already love, which is always good. Always good. I always pin like that to not have to pull them out. Yeah. The creep is really annoying. Yeah, when working with stretchy stuff particularly. Yeah, that stretchy stuff is the only time I'll really pull from behind the foot as well as I go. Like I'll pull it through so it feeds sort of evenly. Is the cloths for a brush tail possum? No, the clothes are for me. Yeah, not for a possum. Possums don't need clothes. They grow their own. They are well equipped for the very, very mild winters. It is winter time. This is what I'm wearing. Yes, so the possums are very well equipped for our weather down here. I also have no heating on. This is just how it is in Australia. Well, at least in Queensland. Melbourne gets a bit nippy. You're probably a little nippy down there, all the Melbourners who were talking before. Yes, probably a little nippier down there, but quite warm here. You should consider making a poster for those tricks. Oh gosh, for the tricks in creating a pattern from an existing garment, like from something you already own and love, because that for some reason I drew these darts on the front. I don't know why I did that. That's weird. I must have been thinking at the time. But yeah, is that making a poster for making a pattern? Because I think the problem with doing that, I suppose it's not a problem, because I guess I did it for the 3D printing one. Yeah, maybe it's not a problem. I was thinking the problem with doing that is that there's so many things in between those steps, but the design tips one I had, the 3D printing design tips was one that is sort of similar in that there's lots of steps in between. But that said, the 3D printing design tips is because there's so many different ways to make a model, and depending on what you're making, the goals are really different. But when you're making a garment from an existing garment, it only depends a little bit on what you're making. The skills are all sort of the same, and you follow them sort of in the same way. I could probably make separate posts. Yeah, I'd have to have a think about it. I could probably make separate posters for each part of the process. But you still would want to know what order to do them in and stuff, because it could get confusing. It's probably better as a little course. I think it's probably better as a series of things. I'm just again lining up that dart. Again, we pulled that through, so lining that one up. Where's my foot? Can't find it. There we go. So just doing. Oh, we're going backwards. Oh no, that ruins it. Oh well. I must have still had backwards on my machine selected. That's okay. Well, this will just be a normal dart, basically. Oh, we're not winning. I could unpick it, but it's really not the worst thing in the world. Oh, why are we looping? What's going on? Something's going on. I don't think I pulled this through enough. Yeah, let's just undo this. Oh, no good. No good. I'm not sure what went wrong there. Something went wrong. I think I threaded something wrong. Is it in the... That's weird. Anyway, these things happen. I'll just rethread and start again. I think part of the reason my sewing is so slow is because I make lots of mistakes. And I make lots of mistakes because I have ADHD, I've learned. And when I'm hyper focused on it, you know, I get in the flow and stuff, but I'm also talking to all y'all, which is lovely. But that means there's 2 things for my brain to think about or more, because I'm also trying to make sure you can still see what I'm doing, which I'm not great at, as you can tell, because I've, you know, got my hands right in front of it again. But yes, I am trying. Okay. So I just pulled that bobbin thread up through here again, and we'll do it again. We'll give it a go. Supreme Pizza Man says community colleges usually have extended learning courses that cover all kinds of things. Yeah, cool. Okay, so probably, maybe, a community college would have it. Otherwise a trade school or something. Yeah, yeah. I don't know. America's so different in some ways and then so similar in others. So it's like really hard to know. Like apparently you guys have different definitions of psychologist and psychiatrist or something, or I don't know, or counselor and psychologist. Like here, a psychologist needs to have gone to university and have a psychology degree and stuff, but they're not necessarily a doctor. But psychiatrists are a doctor here, and then I think it's like slightly different in America. I don't know. And so there's sometimes these things that like catch me out where I think I know something and I don't know it at all. And you know, it's hard to give advice. Oh, hey Thrasher, lovely to see you. 8 degrees Celsius in Melbourne, not awful. Ha ha, my Brisbane body begs to differ. 8 degrees is too damn cold for me. It's very mild here in Brisbane all year round, as Melbourners would know, but maybe not everyone else on the planet would know. Yes, so I'm going to Norfolk Island in a few weeks. I'm going on holiday, going away on holiday. It's like actually getting on a plane and going somewhere. It's gonna be so cool. And yeah, so going on holiday soon. And oh, you can't even see what I'm doing. Oh, there we go. Yeah, going on holiday soon. And Norfolk is like a bit nippier than Brisbane. And I don't have any clothes. I'm going to have to go shopping. And I'm like, what do you even wear when it's chilly? I don't know. So I'm like, maybe I can get away with my dresses and just like some stockings and like a scarf and stuff. I'm hoping that's the case. But I know that Norfolk just does not have that much shopping going on. It's a tiny little island in the middle of the South Pacific. Most beautiful place I've ever been, but I've only ever been in summer before. And yeah. Oh, you noticed I had the pin go in this direction down here, which is something I said I didn't do, but I wouldn't do before. But it's because I wanted the dart point to match down here. I wanted the dart to be accurate, which is why I pinned in this direction, because I wanted that point to match. That point to match the point underneath. That's why I had pinned in this direction. So I kind of, yeah, I guess I could be a bit confusing if you hadn't seen that before, because I just said I didn't do that, but then I did do it. Yeah, I'm doing a lot of weird things today, so this isn't the best if you're just learning to sew. It's like a lot of my streams. Not the best if you're beginning, but you know, maybe you'll get something out of it. So yeah, there we go. Seam. No tails here. No tails here. Little tail here and a back tack, or a bar tack. I think some people call it a bar tack, not sure why. But yeah, and this obviously we still have the knot in the sewing machine, so I'm just pulling that back through. Pulling it back through. Oh no, we did a granny knot, that's right, so I can't pull it back through. That's okay. Yeah. So I'm just gonna do the rest of these dots. There's just a few. I'll just do them as we chat. Oh, lovely to see you. PM me your value. Yeah, gosh. It's lovely that you joined the Discord too, because I know we used to chat quite a bit on Reddit, and yeah, just haven't been on there much since the great drama. Someday I should probably talk about all that properly, but anyway, that is not this day. Eric says 8 degrees Celsius, that is about the time we bring out shorts and t-shirts here in Sweden if the sun's up. That does not surprise me at all, Eric. The pictures you show of like snow that is like, I don't know, meters deep it seems. I don't really know how snow works, but it looks very deep. Snow seems like snow is a bit of a mystery to me. I've seen it once before in my life, but it was just slush, and it was just on a snowfield here in Australia, because it does get cold in Australia. We do have snowfields, just for anyone wondering. It's not all desert. But yes, not where I am. Every now and again someone will get some frost a couple of hours away from me, but it's rare. It's very rare. Okay, I just rethreaded that backwards through the machine. Oh, something's going on. My tension's squiffy. Oh, look at that. See, I'm all loopy on the top thread. What's going on? something's going on. I think I'm gonna rethread this. It's I probably just missed something because I had to thread it through my Fresnel lens. Yes, not ideal situation. Bloody hell. Through there. Through here. Maybe it just slipped out of the tension. Not sure. Not sure. First step is always to rethread though. Because my tension's set correctly. Should be fine. I reckon it probably just didn't go in there. Yeah, that's probably it. Because normally you kind of give it a good tug as you're going around all these bends, but it's a little bit trickier with my Fresnel lens. I need a little flip up or slide aside kind of thing. slide aside so I can thread my sewing machine. Oh, this is probably what happened. It probably just didn't go properly in underneath here. That's probably what happened, because it just tried to do it then too. I reckon that's what it did. I'm gonna do a little test sew before I go again. Oh, come on, thread. Behave. Behave. There we go. Nope. Nope. Oh, lordy. So much sewing. So far it's been all threading the machine. Okay. Okay. Let's just bring this needle down so I can feel the tension. Ooh. Still can't feel that tension. What's the go there? That is interesting. Does nothing. Okay. I'm going to thread it the old-fashioned way. I'm going to take the lens off because something is going weird here. So this is how quick it should normally take to thread a machine. This is the actual speed at which you thread a machine. That's interesting. I'm not sure what's going on. I'm going to thread it, do a little test sew because something's weird. Something's weird. I had it serviced really recently, and I actually think the timing is a little off because it makes a little noise, and I'm a little unsure about... I'd never been to the people who service it before, and I'm kind of a little skeptical. Where's the scrap? Scrap. This looks scrappy. Nope, that's part of the skirt. This looks scrappy. Yeah, good luck using that bit. I will. Okay, it's sewing fine now. I don't know. Must have just been threading it weirdly through the... Must have just got something wrong in the Fresnel lens. Might leave it off for now. Because I can still see alright. I got my glasses on. I got my glasses. Threshit says he loves snow. I love snow as well. I mean, I love the look of it. I don't know much about it, but I feel like I would love it. It seems magical, you know, like little rainbows everywhere. And someone told me snow has a sound, like when it's snowing. There's, you know how like when it rains, it has a sound. Someone told me snow has a sound, and I really want to know what that is. It's like when someone told me that the aurora borealis, oh gosh, has a sound. I want to know what that sounds like. Apparently it's all like whispery. I don't know. That sounds cool as hell. Yeah. Anyway, tell me what snow sounds like. This is all me when I'm trying to use my sewing machine. Something is weird. Normally it's just like rethread the sewing machine. Normally that works. Yeah. But yeah, I don't know. But the thing that makes me think the timing is out is that it actually clicks a little. You can kind of hear it when I'm sewing. You can sort of hear the clicking. I'm just going to put this first stitch in really close to the edge. There we go. Pull this out and go along. See that? You can kind of hear it. And it's not the needle piercing through the fabric. It's a click just before it does that. So it's not a blunt needle. I think the timing is a little out. Anyway, I've been meaning to email them. There we go. Oh, we're back in business. Yes, looking good. Looking good. Oh, finally. Bloody hell. Okay. I'm gonna get rid of this. Oh, I suppose I don't need to. Decisions. Do I need to? Will I? Now let's leave it in. Let's just tie another knot so I'm not wasting that much thread. Do 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 do. Oh, did I do that right? Hard to tell. Do it again. So does anyone here sew? I know Eric does a teeny bit, right? Eric, you said you sew a little? I think that knot's gonna slip. I don't think that was a proper reef knot. Anyway, we'll give it a go. Yeah, we're alright. We got through the needle. I think that's the main strain on this thread. Just tie a proper granny knot up here. Granny snot. Granny snot! This is gross. Yeah, I'd love to see, yeah, what, if you do so, tell me what you make. I'd love to see. I always love seeing what people make. I think that's why I enjoy being in the community so much. Yeah, I don't know, I felt kind of weird and anxious and like weirdly lonely, lately. So, I'm trying to be more social again. I've lost the other side of my front in my rummage. There it is. Is that it? Yes. Yeah, I've been weirdly lonely. So I thought I should be social again, you know, not just mope. Why am I lonely? Meh. So yes, that's why I thought I'd do a stream. And I'm also, you know, making plans with friends and stuff, but yeah, just been a bit lonely. Lonesome. Okay. Doing this next dot, and then I think I might cut a sleeve. I don't think I cut the sleeves. I gotta decide what I want to do with the sleeves. Snow makes everything sound still. Oh, that's cool. When it's super dry, it's squeaky. Ah, like sand. Sand is squeaky when it's dry too. Snow sound is less sound unless you walk on it. Wow, okay. That's cool. That's cool. Snow absorbs the sound. The silence is awesome. Wow. Like beating your house sliding with feather dusters. Amazing. That sounds so cool. Stepping on it makes crunchy noises. Wow, this sounds so cool. I think I'm gonna have to go somewhere when it's really snowy. Like, I think I just need to experience this. Heavy snow without a wind is dampening all sounds. Very quiet and peaceful. Wow. The silence of snow is great, but I could do without the cold. Fair. Very fair. All I know from sewing was stitching scout badges onto my uniform like 15 years ago. That's really cool. I wish I was a scout. I feel like I would have had more friends as a child if my parents had put me into scouts. Yeah. The loneliness is a theme. Anyway, I sew clothing for myself mainly, plus household goods and the occasional quilt for people I really like. Wow, yeah, that's a lot of work. You really want to be liking people you're making a quilt for. I don't think I've ever made someone a quilt. That's a lot of work. I don't think I've ever even made myself a quilt. Though I've started collecting all my little scraps and just cutting them into the same size pieces, because I just had like boxes of scraps of fabric I really loved. Like this one, it's really lovely fabric, you know. And I didn't want to throw it out because I really liked it. But I just had all these tiny little non-usable scraps. They're just all too small. So I went along and I cut the same size squares out of all of them. And I'm like, one day you will be a quilt. Yeah, so I think there will be a quilt in my future at some point. Yeah, the machine's behaving now. I'm not sure what it was doing. I must have just threaded it wrong. I can sew freestyle, which means I don't know what the knobs do, but it holds long enough. That's fair enough. That's fair enough. I think with sewing too, like there's this misconception that you want your seams to be really, really strong. Not saying this is what you think, PM me a value, not saying this is what you think. I think it just brought up a thought in my mind that a lot of people want their seams to be really super strong, and they'll use lots of thick thread, like particularly when hand sewing. They'll use lots of thick thread and go over it lots of times and stuff, and you actually don't want to do that because thread is cheap and fabric is not. And what happens when you do that and you put pressure on that seam is that the fabric around that seam will tear. And when the fabric around that seam tears, you really can't do loads to repair it in a really effective, you know, pretty kind of way, in a way that is not visible. And we're creeping a little. See what I said about the open toe foot? It sometimes does that. We'll be all right. Yes, it tears the fabric, where you really would much prefer to tear the thread, because the thread, you can just sew that back in again. That's not too tricky. Oh, did we get to the knot? I didn't pull enough thread through. Yeah, bad me. I did not estimate that well. But it took the knot all the way through the fabric, which is interesting. But yeah, I did not pull that knot through enough. I think I just kind of half did it. I should really not try and sew and talk, but then I wouldn't get your company, and this is a lot of fun. So we're just gonna deal with that, and I'm just gonna go over these bits a little more. But yeah, so much better to have a seam that breaks than have a fabric that breaks, and particularly when you're working in nice fine fabrics like this, which is a really lightweight cotton voile. I'm not quite sure how you say it. I've always said it voile, but then the other day I heard someone call it voile, and I'm like, am I saying it wrong? Have I been saying it wrong all this time? Is it just an Australian saying? Because we like saying a lot of things wrong. Like we will say fillet of fish at McDonald's. I don't know. Anyway, yes. So if you have a nice lightweight fabric like this, or a silk or something, you want the thread to tear before the before the fabric does. You can sew up another seam. It's fine. But you can't, you know, invent fabric where there wasn't any. See, I didn't even pull the thread through. That's what happened, and there's no bar tack there. That's fine. What we'll do here, because there's the tail at the top of our dart, which is what we were trying to avoid. I might just undo this whole seam. Yeah, it'll be easy enough. So I can show you how to undo things quite quickly. It's a good opportunity. So this was my top side. And I can tell because the stitches are just a little bit rounder, and on my bottom side the stitches kind of make a little zigzag. It's really hard to tell, probably even harder to tell on the screen. I'll hold it up this way. So the stitches are nice and rounded, like nice little U shapes going through the fabric on this side. So this was my top thread, and under here they zigzag ever so slightly, and that's because there's actually a little lock stitch, a little twist in between the layers of fabric, and that's actually twisting this one off to the side, so they kind of zigzag. So I know this is my back side, and this is the side that you want to pull a thread from, and when you pull that thread, it's easier to pull that whole thread out. So I'm going to grab that thread at the end here. I've just got to separate it from the top one. So, and the way you can do that easily is with a pin. You can just grab this thread here from the back and separate it from the top one. And now I can just pull on this thread and pull on it and just ease it through. And it should, if I'm lucky, just slide right on out. And then I don't need to unpick that seam with the unpicker, because the unpicker is sort of risky. There you go, slid straight out. And now I have no thread in there anymore, so slid straight out. So it's a nice quick way to unpick something relatively short, and even if it's not relatively short, you can do that multiple times along the length of a seam. Yeah, so it's a nice way to unpick a seam, because if you're using a thread like a seam ripper, I think they call them in America, we call them unpickers here, you risk damaging the fabric, like just through human error, you know, just accidentally cutting a bit of the fabric instead of where you're meaning to cut. So this is a good way to go, and it's also a lot quicker. Like you can just pull that thread out and boom, done. Sorry, that probably was a bit loud. Toile. Toile. Okay. Oh, this is not toile. This is voile. Did I say voile? Did I say? Yeah, this is voile. I guess they're all the same, really. Toile and voile is really kind of the same thing. They're plain weave, lightweight cotton. I'm actually not sure what the difference is. Not much. It wouldn't be much of a difference. I used to do latch hook, though that probably doesn't count. Maybe a little hand sewing too. I used an embroidery machine a few times. Oh, that's very cool, Peter. Latch hooking is fun. So did you make like rugs and stuff with the latch hooking? Though it was an automatic embroidery machine. Still very cool. They're not the easiest thing in the world to run, so good on you. That's very cool. I would like to have a large embroidery machine. I'm trying to convince work we need one. I'm like, yes. And I keep bringing up you, Eric, if you're still there. I keep being like, you know, my mate with the Stockholm Makerspace, he says that everyone comes and uses the embroidery machine and that it's like one of their most used things. And so we should definitely get an embroidery machine. That knot slipped. I didn't do a proper reef knot there. I think I must have done two half hitches, which is sometimes what I accidentally do, but that's okay. Yeah, so I keep bringing you up, Eric. I'm like, yes, Eric says it's very, very well utilized at the Stockholm Makerspace, so we should get one too. We need an embroidery machine. We need one. Crucial thing. I do genuinely think it would get a lot of use, though. It's not entirely selfish. I do genuinely think, and it would be cool, you know, we could make like badges for like different achievements, maker achievements, you know, like making your first vector or whatever. I don't know. It could be fun. It could be really fun. I have sewn some things, even if it rarely happens at the moment with all other projects. Yeah, I'd imagine you would have sewn some things, Eric. You have all the skills. You're just one of those humans with all the skills. I make cycling caps, but I'm starting to work on cycling bags that strap to the bike, says Jeff. Oh, that's cool. What a cool idea. That's a great idea. I love a good storage solution. I'm thinking about a belt for work, like a tool belt, or more like a holster, I think. I think it'll be up top, because I bash my hips against things enough. I think if I add extra bits to the sides of my hips, it's only gonna exacerbate the issue. So I'm going to yeah, make some sort of holstery type deal for all the tools I'm constantly reaching for. Yeah, I think. So I might take a leaf out of your book with your cycling bags, but it'll strap to me instead. There you go. Just doing that little back tack. That's betterer. More betterer. Yes. This is good. I think that is the last of the darts. Yay! So there's an order of operations to sewing, as in kind of like maths, where you have an order of operations for maths. There's an order in which you do things that make it easy to continue to assemble the rest of the garment. And yeah, so any darts and gathers should be done first, and then you start sewing all your seams together. And I know I kind of didn't follow that for the skirt, because I sewed some of those pleats together, and then sewed some of those seams together, but that's kind of because we're adding the complexity of trying to pattern match. So I guess I just said something and then took it away. But anyway, so I've sewn up these darts, and now is a good time to pause and plug my iron in and do some pressing. The key to beautiful sewing is frequent pressing, and I will say that until I am blue in the face, because if you press your garments and all your seams as you go, then all the subsequent seams will make those seams sit well. So yes, always be pressing your stuff. Be pressing. You be a pusher, a presser. Oh no, don't be an oppressor. Oh, that came out wrong. I don't know. Oh no, I lost you. Anyway, I have a power board here. What can I unplug? This one, I think. Yeah. So that's my iron. I normally have a proper ironing board, which, oh, so wonky. Sorry, everyone. There we go. I normally have a proper ironing board, which I normally sit behind me, but in interest of actually showing you what I'm doing as I go, I thought I would try an attempt to make a temporary ironing board, which I have done by wrapping a piece of wood in some wool fabric. So this is my temporary ironing board. Quilters use a board not dissimilar to this. I don't love this style because with an iron, it produces a lot of steam. obviously. Steam is what relaxes the fibers, and the removal of that steam is what sets it into place. So you actually want the steam to be able to get away from the garment. You want it to be able to leave, because then it sort of sets whatever you've pressed. Yes, okay. So there is a methodology to pressing seams. I'll just check the comments. So you should get an embroidery machine for your space, says Eric. They are awesome. I agree, Eric. I'll keep on the tune, and I'll keep using you as your evidence. Peter says a few small ones that hang on the wall. This is the rugs I was talking, the latch hook. But I suppose they could have been used as rugs. That's really cool. That's really cool. So you had little wall hanging tapestries. Supreme Pizza Man says that sounds less like a tool belt and more like a fanny pack. I just wanted to say fanny. Is it true that fanny means butt in America? Because here in Australia, it means the front one on a lady. Would your machine deal with thick fabric or leather? Yeah, it probably would. This one is pretty expensive though, and there's probably better ones on the market now, so I don't necessarily buy this one. Definitely older machines are generally better for that though. Yeah, they're cast iron, and they generally do a better job. More better job. More old, more better in sewing machines. Oh gosh. What's the trick when sewing seams diagonally? My seams always stretches and look crappy. I hope we have some diagonal seams, and I will show you. Anyway, I will talk about what I'm doing, and then as I'm sewing, I'll talk about other things. So, this is the front of our garment. You can probably see it in the little preview better. This is the front. This is the center front. This is like here on me. So you always want to be pressing darts so that the way that they fold, so that you're not looking into the dart. And what it's hard to explain, but if I press this tail in this direction and then fold this out this way, then the pocket that the dart makes is facing the viewer. And so it's more obvious to see that dart. Whereas if I press it in this direction, the rounding of this seam, it rounds in that direction, it actually obfuscates the seam itself, like the ditch of the seam. This is a couture thing. This is like a high-end sewing thing. So you always want to be pressing your seams towards the center front and towards the center back. So sorry, your darts should be pressed towards the center front. It's like the bulk of the dart, so that you're not looking into the dart. I don't know whether I'm explaining this quite right, but basically when you fold them this way, they sit smoother, they look smoother, and your eye isn't as interrupted by the line of the dart. Obviously this is a pattern print, so it'll still be somewhat interrupted. Thankfully it's quite a busy one, but it'll still be somewhat interrupted, but particularly on plain fabrics and really fine fabrics, silks and stuff, it pays to push them in this direction, because then you're not looking into the dart. And yes, so this is the front. I'm pushing it towards the center front, and I'm giving it a little steam. I actually normally have the steam turned off just so that I can use the button for the steam. So I give it a little bit of steam just to get it in the right place. And you'll notice I'm sort of lifting this side, and it's so that I can make sure that that's really crispy in there. So lifting this up allows me to kind of push it into that direction, and then I give it a bit of heat and take that off, and just kind of let it sit there and set. It's sort of setting right now. Yes, so that should make a nice fine line. You also can go over at the front and then push into it this way to make it even finer. But yes, lots of pressing makes for good sewing. Oh, this wool is really new, and I can smell the color on the wool. It's like getting up my nose. Ugh. So likewise with the bust dart, this is a side bust dart. Obviously men's shirts don't usually have this, but ladies' shirts do. You want to be pushing this bust dart upwards. So again, you're not looking into the dart when you're looking down upon the bulk of the bust. So yeah, push this one upwards. So horizontal darts go up, and then vertical darts go towards either the center back or the center front. So when you're looking at them from the back or the front, they sit nice and smooth. And then if I was lining this dress, which I don't think I will, I think I will leave it really nice and flowy. But if I was lining this and using a full lining, then I would actually push the bulk of the darts on the lining to the opposite direction, so that we don't have several layers of fabric here. So that instead we have, oh, I should have done this. Anyway, so yeah, I would push the bulk of the dart to the opposite direction on the lining fabric so that the bulk is spread out a bit more, so it's not over the top of each other there. I hope this is making sense. I hope this is making some kind of sense. This is my back. This is that back piece. So as I said, we're pushing them towards the back. So they want to sit that way right now, but we'll be pushing them this way. This is also the time that my my marking pens disappear because they are friction pens. They're like Pilot friction pens, and they will disappear because, oh, I didn't sew this one. This was that seam I forgot to finish. I'll just quickly finish that right now while leaning over my ironing board, and you won't be able to see it because my camera's in the way. Anyway, I'll just go over a few of these threads and then take it down to the bottom. Okay. Back check it there. Okay. Okay. Just trim these threads. So that was the one I hadn't finished, the one ages ago, and I was like, oh, I'll do that later, and totally forgot about it. Anyway, this is why we press. So we notice when we make mistakes and we fix them. Okay, so yes, this one goes towards the center back. So this one's going in this direction. And you want to like stretch it out as it goes because you really want that to be, it's very easy to end up with a little folder fabric there that is extra. So yeah, you really want to be spreading it as you go, and you can do that just by lifting one side, like the side away from the iron. You lift that, it'll allow you to press it real neat. So yeah, there is me pressing. And I wasn't sure how I wanted to finish this bit. This is the yoke. I wasn't sure whether I wanted to maybe just line this section of the yoke, which I still think I might. So I guess I have to decide that pretty soon. I might do that. I'll get a bit of, I think I have some more foil or like something lightweight cotton, and cut another piece of the yoke. But for now, we've sewn those, we've pressed those seams. So we'll do a bit of cutting. And I'll just pop this iron over here out of the way, or I'm not going to burn myself accidentally. I might. I'll leave it warm. Okay, and this can go down here. Rah. Stay. Okay. Let's do some cutting. Yes. I need a drink. Whew. What's the time? We're doing well. Eric says, and on the topic of scout badges, some of my scouts hate me for the camp badges I've designed. They tend to have highly irregular shapes and lots of sewing required. Oh no! How dare you make them sew? I think sewing is a really good skill to have. Obviously, I mean, I have it, so I collected it. But yeah, I think it's a really handy one to have. You learn, it's just so useful for so many things. And I think the skills you get in sewing also apply to so many other crafts, and it's like hard to even realize it all until you start sewing, like grain line and like you know, working with anything that's malleable, really. Like I'm really glad that I started with sewing because it's been a foundation for so many other fields of making. Yeah, the right type of needles, I totally agree. Right type of needles make a world of difference. You want a good, sharp, but thick needle for leather. Leather working is hard though. I would just sew leather by hand. I think it's the better way to sew leather. Maybe that's a cop-out, but I suppose it depends on the weight of the leather. But you have to be perfect every time when you're sewing leather because you're breaking holes in it when you actually punch through it with a needle on a sewing machine, and you know, in real life. But in real life, you're actually punching the holes before you're sewing it, so you have a bit more control over where the holes are. And yeah, when you're doing it on a machine, you have to get that seam 100% perfect first go. Otherwise, your leather bit is kind of ruined. Yeah, it's playing with fire. It's living on the edge. Okay, so what was I doing? Sleeves. Yes, I decided. So we don't need the bodice block anymore. You can go over there. Ooh, go over there somewhere. I think I decided I was going to put little puff sleeves on this. Little cute puffy ones. Which isn't a sleeve I actually made for this pattern, but I held up the arm side, like the armhole, and it seemed to be pretty all right. So I think we are going to use this sleeve for it. And this sleeve has a little gather at the top. That's what this line here indicates, kind of this wavy line. That is the start of it, and this is like wave here, and this is a fold line here. So yeah, I'm just trying to find a good spot for it. This sleeve won't match, it just won't, so it's a little less important to make sure that it matches on a pattern and whatever. I wonder if I should do the yoke first though. I mean, I'll have to sew the yoke before I do the sleeves anyway. We might cut the yoke. It's kind of hard working on this little bit of table. Normally I just spread everything out on the floor. I'm just going to grab this little bit of fabric right there. I'll just grab it. So this is what I'll cut the duplicate of the yoke out of. So here's the yoke piece. Yeah. And this is like this, it's almost the exact same fabric. It feels so similar, it's crazy. And it's also the sort of creamy-ish background of this fabric. So it's bloody perfect. It's rare that you find a perfectly matching fabric like that. And I seem to have meters and meters of this. I went, oh, I really like that. Let's just buy loads. So, so I must have done that at some point in time and go past me. I'm glad I did that. Cool. So, normally you like wash fabric before you cut it, and I didn't even wash that fabric there. I know this fabric is this is a Liberty Tana lawn. It's really nice, like sort of high-end fabric, and I know it doesn't shrink too much, and I also know this pattern is going to be rather larger than I need it to be. It's going to sort of swim on me a bit, which is fine. It's fine. It's more because of the pattern matching that it sort of has to be that way, and I'm going to be cinching it in with a little bow around my waist, so it's not as important that it's going to shrink, and the hem is really, really long, so if it shrinks up even 10 centimeters, it's going to be fine. I'm fine with it. So yeah, I am laying out this piece of the yoke, and one thing you got to watch when you're laying out patterns is that the grain line, which on this piece should be marked here, I just know it is, but that's where it would be. This is the grain line. It should be matching with your selvage. It should be running parallel to the weft. Is that the warp? Anyway, the long lines in your fabric, the selvage here. The selvage is the like edge of your fabric when it comes off the roll. Yeah, and if you're just starting out, it's probably a good idea to actually measure in two places to make sure you're even. But I cut fabric for a while for a living. I worked for a fabric store, and I got really, really good at cutting along the line of the fabric. So I'm actually pretty confident to just lay my pieces out. But I don't recommend you do it this way, especially if you're starting out. You should probably measure. So I'm going to draw around this one, and then I'm going to try and use the rotary cutter. I've got a bit of, I think it's RSI, from my days when I did sew for a living, and that motion on scissors is can't really see me when I'm looking down, can you? That squeezing motion, that sort of scissor using motion, is really painful on me after only a short while, really. This pen is not happy. Thankfully, I have 50 million friction type pens because that's all I use. Yeah, that motion is really painful for me after really not a long while. So I'm trying to get used to using a rotary cutter, which is a whole new world for me. Whole new world. Yeah, so I'm trying to use that a bit more. And we're gonna use that a bit today. So I'm not as confident with this as other things, but that is fine. It's always good to keep skills. You know, it's always good to like see what else is out there and keep your skills up to date, even if you're pretty good at something. And I think I'm pretty good at sewing. even if I'm slow. So these notches here, you'll see there's a couple of notches on my pattern. And this is actually where the gathering goes to. So these are just marking points. And they're, yeah, again, I'm not going to cut those out. And I don't actually need to even mark them on here because I've already gathered the thing that gathers onto here on the other piece. So yeah, we got this. We got a little rotary cutter. This is just a cheapy one. I think I want to buy a good one because this one kind of undoes itself a little. So I think I think it's like, there's a brand like, is it Olaf, something like that. I think they make a really good one, so I think I want to get a really good one. But yeah, these kind of like trace your seams with them, and I'm not being particularly accurate, and I probably should be a bit better, so I'll just concentrate slightly more. I'm going to take this across here, go down, and I'll cut out that scoop in a tick. Is that separating? I think I might also have a little nick on this blade. It's like a regular spot where it doesn't cut quite cleanly. But I do like this rolling thing. I think in general it's much better for my wrist. So I think, yeah, I think this is something I'm going to stick with. I'm just kind of getting used to it. It's also a lot quicker. I personally really don't enjoy the the act of cutting a pattern out, or cutting my pieces out. I just want to get to the sewing bit and the assembly bit. I really don't. I like the pattern making. I like the sewing, but the bit in the middle where you cut out the fabric, I really don't like. Oh, something in that wool really got up my throat. I'm not sure whether I should keep pressing on that. Maybe there's some size in there or something. It's really tickly. There is usually when you buy fabric, they put a sort of, it's called size, but it's kind of like a glue that makes the fabric look neat. They'll also use starch and stuff too that makes it look neat on the roll. Yeah, in stores, and part of the washing process also washes that out because sometimes they can be quite allergenic. And I think whatever they've used on that one is not great, so I'm not sure I should keep ironing over it. I might actually set up my proper ironing board and yeah, maybe I just iron real quick and and yeah, it'd be very boring for you. I think I want to get one of those mini ironing boards from IKEA. They have like these little wee ones that can kind of sit on your desktop. Yeah, I need a better blade. This one's not great. I'm missing little bits. There we go. That was a slight ordeal. Yeah, I think I want to get one of the little ironing boards so I can have it sit next to me on a little trolley. So I think I might do that at some point in the not too distant future. Anyway, we have our yoke now. Yoke, where be you? Back piece, somewhere here. Yeah, yes. So I am going to sew this bit onto here. So this bit is the same as this bit here, and we're just going to sew this into here, and all it's going to do is hide this. Yes, we're going to do that bit, and then I'm going to sew the fronts onto these seams here, the shoulder seams, and then I'm going to sew this onto the other side there, and that will hide all these seams up here. So it's just like it's not even a half lining, it's just a little bit of lining just to get that. Put this back on the machine so you can see what we're doing. Need a drag knife to CNC out the fabric. I agree, but then I would need a CNC machine that is like as big as several meters of fabric, and god dang, I have nowhere to put that. Even the one at work it's what is it, 1200 by 2400. So even the one at work is not as wide as quite a lot of fabrics out there. A lot of fabrics are 1200, but a lot of them are also 1500. So yeah, it would, and 2.4 meters is not that much when you're making a dress. Oh, this pin is broken. It's a little wonky. I keep a little broken sharps box in my sewing kit, and I just keep all my broken pins and stuff in there because otherwise you're always throwing out like individual pins, and that's no good. You don't want to be throwing those in the bin. Someone might tread on them or something. So yes, I always keep them in a little box. So right now I'm just matching the seams up to the beginning and end, and I'll also probably pop one in the middle just to keep everything aligned, because this seam isn't entirely straight. It's got a little bit of a curve, and yeah, you just want to make sure you're keeping them all in alignment as you go. And more pins, less likely that you're going to go awry. But like I said with leather, back on the leather train, you can't pin into leather. You can use little clips, little bulldog clips, or what do they call them? Binder clips, I think, in America. You can use those instead, but yeah. So I am choosing my side carefully to sew from. So I could also sew from this side and follow along this seam edge, but on this side, because I've already attached something to it, I have this seam line already. So what I now will aim to do is sew just to the left of this seam line. And that will mean that when I turn it right way out, I won't have any seam lines sticking out on anywhere in the garment. So that's what I'm going to do. Yeah, so that is why I first put it in the machine in the white way and went, oh no, that's not right, I want it in this way. Yes, I hope that makes some kind of sense. But if I was to sew it from the white direction, I wouldn't be able to see this line, so I wouldn't be able to follow it, so it could creep in weird directions. So yes, I have a couple of pins in here, and I'm also kind of pinning with my fingers. I'm just lining everything up and then putting my finger down to hold these bits in place. I'll do it a bit. I'll tilt myself here. Yeah, so I'm arranging this all under here and making sure the white is matching up at this point, and then putting my finger there, and as I go I'll keep my finger here as it slides on into the machine. So we can watch that now. So I'll do my little back tack at the beginning like I would start any seam, and I'm actually going to hold these threads now as I pull it through, just so that it's nice and smooth. Teresa, are you okay? I'm not sure what happened there, Teresa. Maybe a cat walked on your keyboard. Anyway, so I take it to where my finger is, and then I put the needle down into the fabric just so it doesn't go anywhere, and then I arrange the next little bit. And this will be between this and the pin, really. And then I continue on. And again, just trying to remove those pins before the cat wanted to chat. I knew it! I knew it was a cat! Didn't I say? I taught my first sewing induction for the first time at work the other day, because we have inductions for our various machines. And yeah, I did the sewing one for the first time, because normally we have this awesome guy called Jimmy come to do it, but he must have been available that day or whatever, I'm not sure. But anyway, yeah, taught it for the first time, and it made me realize yeah, how much I knew and what it's really like to start, you know, like when you don't know anything. It's like trying to explain to someone how to drive a car in like an hour. Like it's like really quite a lot to fit in. Yeah, really quite a lot. Anyway, so you can see I have two seams, show it here, two seams really close to each other. So this one on this side, like on more like this side, not that side, this side, was the one I just sewed. And it means now that when we open this up, we can't see any stitching in here, and we also can't see any stitching in here, which is nice and neat. I also now, I think what I'll do is, because part of this seam, this bit here, has gathers meaning like runches, ruffles almost, they add a bit of bulk in the seam allowance. So in here there's a bit of bulk. So what I'm actually going to do is run another line of stitching along here, now that I know the seam is correct. Run another line of stitching just along here to kind of tack that all down and just reduce that bulk some, just to hold it down a little, because this is a really lightweight fabric. So and thankfully it's a busy pattern, but it's also just a good habit to get into. Again, I learned to sew in sort of a very couture method, so very finicky and one-off and slow, but there's all these tips. It's very, very different to sewing industrially or sewing from home, but all these tips make your outer garment look bloody perfect, which is just the most satisfying thing on the planet. So yeah, I'm sorry my machine is so loud. Like I said, I think the timing is a little loud. Anyway, so So yes, now that seam really nice and flat, and it will stay flat too. So as I move, if I don't always want to iron this, which I don't always iron things, it will still stay nice and flat. It will want to stay flat. Yeah, couture is a lot about encouraging things to want to do what you want them to do. It's kind of hard to explain, but yeah, due to grain line and all sorts of other things, you can kind of encourage something to behave in a way that you want. Yeah, really hard to explain that concept. I'm not sure how I would do it without lots of demonstrations. But yeah, it's sort of about engineering things so that they behave in the way that you want them to. I don't know how to say that. I'll have to think about that one a bit more. So yes, we're going to do a similar thing here. What I'm first going to do is attach the front to the green side and leave this white side free. And then I'll go back over, loop it back over and do the white side kind of like we did before. So I will line these up. I'm not going to pin this one because this is a pretty straight seam and I think I can do it just without. So, oh, that was a very short thread. Whoops. This machine is playing silly buggers. Come on. It's also because I have the open-toed foot. It's not entirely its fault. It's also mine. Okay. And one thing to note too, and you'll see it here as I get close, I'll lift it up a little. So this point here does not match the end of this point here. Can we see that? It overlaps a bit more. And that's because you're not actually meant to match the sides of the seam. What you're actually meant to match is the point at which the seam meets. So this point here, which is 1 centimeter in from the seam allowance, is actually the section that I am matching. See that? So these two cross at the 1 centimeter point, like in from the seam allowance. So these 2 points here don't match, which is correct. It kind of seems counterintuitive, but yeah, you actually want seams to be ending and connecting right at the point of the seam allowance. And I always use 1 centimeter seam allowances because I learnt to sew in sort of an industrial setting. I think a lot of home sew patterns give you 1.5 so that you can change the pattern a bit. But yeah, so on the other side, it's really obvious. This corner, these corners don't match up. This corner here, they're separate. That one there and that one there doesn't match up, but they match up where it counts on the seam, on the actual seam itself. Yes, hope that makes some sense. Are y'all still with us? It must be kind of boring for anyone who doesn't sew. I don't know. I'm sorry, this one's a little weird. It's a little weird today. It's not 3D printing. It's not Fusion 360. Although I have news on that. I think I'm going to be what they call an influencer on Fusion 360 soon. I'm joining their program, so I better sign that NDA, and then I think yeah, so that should be cool. Then I'll have access to some knowledge and stuff that I'll be able to share with y'all. So that's cool. That should be coming. So I think Fusion 360 will continue to happen. I really enjoy using it. Yeah, and I should run another workshop soon, I think. I should finally get another Fusion 360 workshop out there. I know people have been hankering for that. Yeah, gotta get that going. Still here, just the cat needs pats and cuddles. Yes. Oh gosh, words are hard. Good. I'm glad the cat is getting pats and hugs. Okay, so now we have a challenge. So now we'll do it from above. Now our goal is to sew this bit onto this bit, but it's all sort of inside here. So we've got to be a bit clever about it, about how we fold it all. And I think I'm going to work from the neck hole because there's slightly more room here. So sometimes it's easier to kind of like hold it the way it should eventually be, and then sort of turn it through so you can get to the bits you need to get to. I'm not sure I'm making loads of sense, but I'll pin it. So we eventually want this yoke to sit with the seam allowance like this, like that. And it's hard to get in there, and I'd have to sew all the way through the fabric, which would I'd be able to see like a seam on the good side, which I don't want because I'm fussy. So yeah, if you pin it, you can kind of turn it inside out, and now you will have where you need to sew. You need to sew along here, and I'll take these pins out because they're just temporary. Now I just match all this up, and that's where I'll be sewing, and I might need to sort of match it up as I go on my sewing machine, because it's a little tricky otherwise. I might actually have to start from this end. That is fine. Yes, I will, so that I can see the seam allowance that I've already done. The other one will be slightly easier, I think. I think. Yes, okay. So, oh yeah, we'll be alright. We'll be alright. This fabric's so soft and so thin that it's not going to pull us too far out of direction. So yes, this is how you sew a yoke on. You gotta sort of finagle it a little. It's not as tricky as some things, but it gets there. It gets there. So that first seam I sewed, I really should have sewn that at about 8mm. I think it's slightly over. But really I should have been aiming for about 8mm. I think it's more like 10, but now I'm just going ever so slightly to the side of it. So it's adding, I don't think I'm even adding really a millimeter. I'm almost going on top of it. So it'll probably be fine, but yeah, I probably should have done about 8 and then gone about 2 mils to the side of it. I'm sort of going on top of it. It's fine though, as long as it's ever so slightly inwards from the seam allowance, then it still won't show through. So yeah, my sewing's not as neat without the lens. I miss my lens. Morning, Geordie. Hello, Perth. Oh gosh. What temperature is it there? It's very lovely here. Okay, so there we go. So now this seam, poke you this way a little. Oh, it's just adjusting. So now you can't see any seam allowance here, and you can't see any seam allowance here. Super neat, super tidy. And also, I probably should mention, I used a white fabric, not this self fabric, not this patterned fabric in here. And that was because the patterned fabric would show through this lovely lightweight. So you'd end up with like a sort of darker, shadowy kind of texture underneath this one, which yeah, would show through a little bit and kind of mar this pretty pattern. So putting a white behind it actually makes it stand out even more, and yeah, reduces that pattern that would otherwise be marred by a pretty pattern underneath. Yeah, I hope that makes sense. So yes, that's why I picked white, and why I got a bit of white out of my stash for that. So yes, doing the other yoke now, or other shoulder seam at the yoke. Which way are we going to start from? Yeah, this end. You pretty much always, on a sewing machine, want your seam allowance to be pointing that way. And if you get in the habit of always doing it in the same direction, and you want it that way because if you're sewing something, the bulk of it can be on the other side of the sewing machine, so it's not, you're not trying to pull a big, huge hem or big, huge skirt in through here. Yeah, so that's why you always want your seam allowance pointing in that direction, like this way. Yeah, and you also get a feel for it running in that direction when you do it that way. Yeah, you get in the habit of it, and it's all, then your sewing becomes neater. Oh, one thing too, I noticed, I logged onto YouTube, and I finally have reached enough hours for monetization you know, like 6 months into this. So I finally can start to monetize things on YouTube now that I'm really not making videos anymore. Yeah, that'll be cool. I'll do that for the next stream and stuff. Or maybe not stream. Streams seems like they'll be annoying to monetize, but yeah, there you go. Finally made it on YouTube. Woo! Oh, it's such a nightmare. So yes, I thought that was pretty funny. As soon as I get another job. Ooh! Peter says, of late, I've been enjoying exporting my Fusion models and looking at them up close in Neos VR. That's cool. Neos VR. That's cool. Is that for the Vive, Peter? Or is that like Quest or something? Ah, thank you. Yeah, finally. Yes. Okay, so we will want to press these before I attach the sleeves into them, but I'll also want to cut some sleeves before I do that too. So yes. I wonder if we shall we work on the collar and on pattern matching? I don't know. I suppose I could. That's probably more interesting than cutting out sleeves. There's no reason I can't do the collar now. Let's look at the collar situation. Collar. Oh, people can make donations during streams once you're monetized, says Teresa. That's cool. Well, there you go. That will be an option soon. I'm getting approval and stuff. You have to go through a bit of a process. I think they gotta check you out. But all my streams have been pretty safe on YouTube, so all my stuff is pretty chill, I think. I can't imagine them taking issue. I haven't done anything particularly interesting, you know, like outrageous on YouTube. So I think I should be fine. Okay, so we have a front. There we go. And the fronts match. They are the exact same pattern repeat. So they meet up in the middle. It's hard to tell that, but that's because they overlap at about there. So they actually do fully match. The fabric matches across. It's gonna be so pretty. And there's a band down the front, which is... That's not it, that's the collar. Where's the front band? There. This is the band down the front. Front band. Yes, so take the side away just for now so we can see a little better. Probably should have done this before I sewed up the darts. It'll be a little mildly trickier now. It's fine. Yes, so this is the front band. This is where that will sit, and then this is like the collar. So this is kind of like a mandarin style collar. It goes around the neck. Yeah, and then the band attaches to the collar. And yes, so I want to pattern match the fabric for this band. And the way I'm going to do that is to actually lay this on top of the fabric and match up this side before cutting it out. So we're going to try and find a bit where we could fit this whole band. And if I can use a scrap, that's awesome, but that's not going to be the scrap. That won't fit there. So again, normally I'd have more space to do this, but I really wanted to show you what I was doing as I go. So this is looking mildly promising. Mildly. I probably could have cut this before I sewed this all up. It would have been easier. But I didn't think that far ahead, clearly. So I don't think this will be quite enough. Oh, I'm going the wrong direction. Maybe it will be. Okay. Oh, it won't fit there. Maybe here. Yeah, this is looking good. There'll be enough space here for this band. So I am just matching up these on top of each other to the best of my ability. And I'm going to cut around the outside of the front. And I really should press it, but I don't want to go over that wool again. It was really got into my throat. yeah, we'll just be careful as we go. So the band will end up being cut out of this bit underneath the top, because the top is already cut. It'll end up being cut out underneath. So it'll go to about here. So there's enough fabric there, we're good. So I will trace around some of this, and then I might just cut it straight out. Then it'll be nice and accurate. Where did my rotary wheel go? Yes. Just gonna be really careful that it's all matchy. Yes. And I'm just going right along that edge, trying to cut it right the same, which I'm doing an alright job of. Go me. And it doesn't need to go very far along here really, because the band is not super wide, though I seem to remember thinking I would widen the band. How wide is this one? Oh yes, I think I widened it to about 6. Yes, I think I said that in my brain. Okay, well, I will cut this side because that will still be the same. And then we will do a little bit of pattern making, and I'll show you how to use a grading ruler. So that'll be kind of fun. This is a very made up dress. I'm not very well planned, but kind of just for fun, you know? Sometimes it's fun to be a little wild. Make it up as you go along. As long as you remember all the things you were making up, which is my struggle. Anyway, it's not for you to worry about. I'll be alright. Thankfully I have quite a bit of this fabric, so if it all goes awry, it's okay. Okay, that seems like most of the way. Should be alright. Okay, alright, so we've got the outline, because that seam will still be the same, because it's the same on there. But I'm going to add some bulk to this, and I just need another bit of paper in order to do that, and I have some just here. So rolls of paper, if you roll them out, if you roll them this way, they want to curl back up, but if you roll them this way, then they will stay open and nice. I started to draft a skirt on here, so I'll just go a little further along. It's a deep pocket skirt. It's a skirt I really love. Yeah, I'll just cut this bit off. I think that's, yeah, that'll be fine. Alright, so it'll still try and curl, but it'll curl less than the other direction. And if you just pop a couple of things on it, it'll stay down better. Oh, I just put my scissors through. This paper is really, really cheap, which is, you know, good, because I generally do a few revisions when I'm making stuff, so you don't really want to be using real nice paper. Yes. Actually, I only need this front line, really. Yeah, I only need this front line because we're doing 6. Oh, come on. It's so cold that the pens aren't working very well. I just, I think they're getting a bit gummed up in the chill. Okay, beautiful. So, I know that I want to make this 6 centimeters wide because I want it to end up being 4 centimeters. So we're taking two centimeters off the sides, 1 on each side. So it needs to be 6 in the end. My ruler is only 5 centimeters wide, so I'm going to use this one. This is a grading ruler though, so it has little squares on it. in centimeters. They make them in inches and stuff too, but this one's a centimeter one. And this one is similar, it's just larger. This one's more for quilting, but I'm going to use it for this purpose too. So what I'm doing is I'm lining up my 6 centimeter line on this. Can you see? Okay. So I'm lining up my 6 centimeter line with the line with this edge here, so that I know I'm bringing that 6 centimeters from that edge. And you're just trying to line it up, and then you sort of rule a line where that is, you move it along a bit, and you're ruling lines to the tangents of these lines. You're just trying to make them as neat as you can. This should be straight here. Just like that. So now we have that line is 6 centimeters from this line. So it's pretty quick. This is also how you like size up patterns generally, sorta. Kind of depends on what part of the pattern you're sizing up. But this bit here, I'll have to actually pull out the original pattern, which is just down here, in order to create that shape there. So this is the front piece that is the front of the dress. I drew a little drawing of the dress on here so I remember what it looked like. So it's going to look something like that. Yeah, so in order to get that bit of the neck, I want it to match the front. So I am just going to draw this bit up here. And oh gosh, eventually they should meet, but this is really wide. I've made this a very wide band, so I might run into trouble. So at some point, wherever this reaches 2 centimeters will be where I can chop this off pretty safely. I might let it run out a little more. I might, wherever it's 1 centimeter, which is about here. Yeah, I'll let it turn it in. It'll be safer. It uses a bit more fabric, but front, band, wide. And the reason I wanted a wider band was because of the design on here. There's a really distinctive flower. Where's the front of this skirt? There's this big flower, which I think the front will be here. And it only just fits on a 4 centimeter one, and it just looked a bit strange with no breathing room. So I added sorry, it will end up being 4 centimeters total because we're making it 6 centimeters here. So when it was on the 2 centimeters or whatever it was originally, it was sort of cropped and it looked quite strange. So it needed just a little bit of breathing room. So now the band will be about that wide and just look a little nicer, I feel. It's just a visual reasons, not functional reasons. So I'm just going to roughly chop it out now. Like that. And you'll notice I didn't mark any seam allowances on here. And that's because all the seam allowances are 1 centimeter. I don't mark them if they're 1 centimeter because I know they're 1 centimeter. I only mark them if they deviate from that. Yeah, which is an industrial pattern making and sewing technique. Yeah, we all know the standard, and then you don't mark it because you know the standard. And then where it doesn't follow that standard, you would mark the seam allowance with a little notch just to tell people, yeah, this is a 1.5 centimeter seam allowance, which you might do at like a center back or something. If there's a zipper, sometimes they like to have a little bit extra there, or leave a little bit extra in areas like side seams so that the garment could be altered if it's an off the rack sort of piece. Yeah, and they wanted to leave that option open, they might mark a couple of seams where it's easiest to take something in and out. But yeah, I know this fits me already. I've made this dress before and it was from a dress that fit me to begin with. And this pattern piece that I'm changing here doesn't actually change the fit at all. It just changes the width of the band and the front. It's not actually changing the fit. Was that a pizza cutter? Basically, yeah. Basically a pizza cutter. they're sort of new, these things. They've reached popularity in the last, I don't know, 15 years, 10, 15 years. Yeah, they're basically a pizza cutter instead of scissors. Where did I learn the couture stuff? Oh, good question. Mostly the theatre, I think. Yeah, mostly from the theatre company. Just, yeah. And my own interests, just like researching a lot, reading old books in particular. When I started to sew, there was very, very little online. There's more online now. I wouldn't know exactly where to point you though, because I haven't spent a lot of time learning, just because it's hard to find stuff I don't know now, which sounds terrible, but yeah, I don't know. This is, if there's a skill I've probably relatively maxed out the skill tree in, it would be sewing, I think. Yeah. Yeah. So there's, I wouldn't know where to point you, but I do know that there is more information online than there used to be. But yeah, mostly reading old books, and even it's like books like from Singer Sewing and McCall's and stuff. McCall's and Reader Digest and stuff have like Bibles basically of how to do all things sewing. And yeah, even those sorts of things in the older they go, the better they are generally, because people just used to sew all the time. But yeah, also just following couture artists and looking at their work and looking at what they say about their work and how to do things. There's a few of them out there. There's a magazine called Threads, and they have a few contributing couturiers who write tutorials for them. There's a guy called Kenneth King, who has lots of really interesting tutorials and comes up with lots of interesting methods to do things. So yeah, I book recommendations. Yeah, Singer Sewing, Reader's Digest Sewing, either of those. Oh, sorry, McCall's Sewing or Reader's Digest Sewing. If you're just looking for like little techniques and stuff, they're not really couture so much, but they have lots of little things in there that couturiers still use, and generally home sewers and industrial people don't use, just because they take a bit of time. But yeah, they really collected those quite well. But yeah, a magazine subscription to Threads, or just you can buy their backlog for, I don't know, like a couple of $100 or something, and just has loads and loads of magazines, and they have really, really good tutorials in there for little interesting seam finishes and little interesting techniques and stuff. And it's just collecting all of those together over the course of a lot of projects and a lot of reading and stuff. I just, this is one of my hyper-focused things, sewing. So I just sort of fell in the deep end there, and yeah, I really enjoy learning about it. So it's not painful to me. So I think I just absorb a lot of information about it. Yeah. So have you made anything yet? No, but look at all these cool books. Telling people to go look for old books. Yeah, that's not dangerous at all. I hope these people have adequate unfilled shelves. Yes. Yeah. Yeah, the Reader's Digest is great. It's a great one. I'm not sure quite where you are in your sewing journey, Teresa, but yeah, that's a really good one. If you haven't already, you probably already know that. Yeah, magazine Threads. I think that's a really good one if you're wanting a bit more interesting stuff. Yeah. Depends what you're doing though, right? Like, I think the thing with couture is it always depends on what you're doing, and it's always thinking about how to get the best looking product. Particularly with couture, they're not really concerned about the longevity of the garment, because usually they're only worn once in that world. Yeah, so it's all about how to make the outside look the best it can be. And some of it is just like you pick up principles over time, and things you should be thinking about through those sorts of tutorials that I was talking about. And then with those principles, you start to design your own construction methods and methods to get the right result. Yeah, I also did an apprenticeship in costume making. So I learned on the job, and I also learned at trade school, like I was saying. I did a few classes with trade school there too, but that was more sort of, at the trade school it's more like fashion and like industrial sorts of sewing. It wasn't so much the couture end of things, but just looking at old garments and talking to the ladies, they were all ladies, talking to the rest of the wardrobe ladies about their construction methods and stuff. Taught me a lot as well. So I guess finding mentors close to you. There's probably some guilds of various things around where you are. Yeah, and finding knowledgeable people and learning from them there's, yeah, nothing better really. I think. I hope I've just been rambling. I've been sewing since 1988. Oh, well, there you go. There you go. There are books. So I'm just looking at my bookshelf to remind myself. There's Couture Sewing Techniques by Schaefer. I think it's like Linda Schaefer or something, but it's Schaefer as her last name. That one's a really good one. That one deconstructs lots of little interesting techniques and stuff. So that's Couture Sewing Techniques. That's a good one. Yeah, that seems to be the only one I've kept, actually. The rest are all like other clothing things. So yeah, maybe that one then. That one's a good one. I hope that's all right. Oh, where did we go? We need our little bit that I already sort of half cut but didn't finish cutting. Now we gotta find it again. Here it is. Here it is. I realized I probably just sounded wildly arrogant during that spiel. Sorry. That probably did sound really, really arrogant. Guess I'm just a bit proud of my sewing. It's one of the few things that I really, you know, went ham at and actually like spent a lot of time on and got really good at. Most of the crafts and stuff that I do and the things I make, I just dabble with things, you know, like I just come in at a surface level, make the thing I want to make, and that's sort of it. Move on to the next skill. So I guess with sewing, I'm a little proud of myself. A little bit proud. Yeah, it probably shows through a little. So I'm sorry if that all sounded wildly arrogant. Yeah. Oh, just trying to match this pattern piece up. Because the fabric has moved. And the original fabric moved a bit. We're just going to have to do our best. It's really not the best way to do this. Oh dear. Anyway. I might just take this front piece again and lay it on top so that I know that the neckline here is going to match. Like I said, this is not tight fitting, so a lot of this stuff is less important than it would be if it was tight fitting. I haven't made something really fitted for a while. Oh, that's not true. I made a corset the other way, yeah, a couple of weeks ago, which is really fun. That was meant to be just a draft. I don't know whether you all saw it. This little ribbon corset. It was meant to just be a draft, but it turned out really, really nicely. I couldn't believe how well it fitted. So yeah, I still want to make a good copy of it, but the draft was really good too. And I was really surprised because corsets are very fitted, and they're probably, I think, the hardest thing to fit, because you're actually, most garments, you're trying to fit the body, right? Like you're trying to be like, I want this to fit the person. But with corsets, you want it to fit the person, but you also want to change the shape of the person. And it means that you're like squishing parts of their body, and that squish doesn't disappear, it moves, and you have to account for that. This is the dodgiest. You have to account for that by adding it elsewhere. And that is tricky as heck, because everyone squishes differently. Some people squish, you know, into their hips more than they do their bust, or yeah, all sorts of stuff. Really, really tricky, really rewarding. I really, really enjoy making corsets. They're yeah, difficult, which is fun. I don't know, that sounds silly, but it is. It's fun. I really enjoy it. Yeah, this is real dodge. That the front of that shirt stretched a lot. I really should have cut these at a similar time, but we're just gonna move this pattern piece a little as we go, and it's gonna be fine. I should have ironed this as well. Super dodge times, woo! I'm kind of using the same method as the grading ruler, just moving it as I go. Oof, it's really not great. Be interesting to see if this works. I mean, it should. There's no reason it won't. Just be interesting to see if it twists the garment at all. Probably should sew one on and see how we go. Might do that. Alrighty. Yeah, I don't think I've mastered the roller yet. Keep missing bits. Anyway, I think it's also a dodgy roller. It's got a little nick, I think, and it keeps not cutting like a single thread every rotation. Anyway, where's our front? So what I'm going to do is sew this on underneath first. Sew it on like that. And then we're going to wrap it around like that and sew it down so it sits on top. So yes, weirdly enough, I'm actually putting wrong side to right side, which is rarely done in sewing. This is one of the occasions you do. Normally you're putting wrong sides together. But yes, there's reasons to deviate, and this is one of them. Oh, I just dropped my Unpicking. Oh, there it is. How are you all doing? We getting bored? I think we might be getting bored. I should probably sew on my own for a bit. I'll finish off this front and then I might bid you all adieu and see you next time. We might do some fusion or yeah, would we like fusion? Is that something we all enjoy? I don't really know, but yeah, we'll do something else. What I'm going to do to match this pattern is actually hold it up to the light and then move it around, because then you can see that it's exactly perfectly matching, and then you put a bunch of pins in it and it can't go anywhere. So I'm holding it up to the light. There's a window over there. So I'm holding it up, moving it around a little until they're exactly matching, and then popping a pin in. And this way I'm perfectly pattern matching everything without too much basting. Basting being hand sewing some stuff before you sew it for realsies with the machine. Or sew it for realsies by hand, but like loosely sewing stuff together. So this is a easy way to pattern match when you've got a relatively fine fabric. It's a sneaky sneak way. Sneaky sneak. So not only did I match it as I was cutting it out, but I'm also matching it as I sew it, because that will be the real test when it's sewn. Oh, don't apologize for distracting me, Teresa. It's good. It's nice to answer questions. It's nice because, like, it makes me think about, you know, where I've come from and how I did end up with the skills I have and where I am and all that sort of stuff. Like, I think, yeah, it's always really interesting when people ask you questions about yourself, because it really makes you think, or it makes me think, of things I wouldn't otherwise think about. Yeah. It's cool. Don't apologize is what I mean. Yeah. Okay, so I'm not going to sew all the way up to here because I'm actually going to fold some of that in around. Oh, actually, I'm not going to sew any of that because we're putting a collar there. Yeah, I'm just going to start from here. Whoops. Lucky I realized. Okay, again, trying for 10 millimeters. I must have cut this a little wonky, so it's matching the pattern with the sewing instead. So yeah, lucky we have a little bit of extra. That was a dodgy area, so I'm not really super surprised that I got that a bit wonky. And I'm going over these pins this time because I really want them to stay exactly where they are. Also, you'll notice that I'm not pinning like right near the edge. I'm sort of pinning pretty close to where I want the seam allowance to be. This also keeps the pinning even more accurate, because it could shift a little either side. I probably could have even made these pricks, like the bits that are picked up by the pin, a little smaller, and it would be even more accurate. go. Unpin, unpin, unpin. So now, hypothetically, this should roll right on over, and I should be able to match it back up here. And I will need to press all this, because I'll need to press this seam allowance down, and then I will top stitch all this. So I'll be pressing my seam allowance in, and then I will top stitch the whole little front band down. But it should, where are we? Yes. So yes, this was sewn like this, and I've rolled it back to the front, and I would press this down, and I also think I would press all my seam allowance down, because then as I go I can match this up and visually as I go, so I can see that I'm definitely getting it all where it should. And there's that big flower that I thought needed a bit of boundary around it, so I think I've chosen the right width. I think that looks quite nice. Got a bit of extra around it. For buttons, I actually have these little crystals. I'm gonna see how they go in the wash. I'm not sure, but they've been in my collection for a while and they should probably just be used. They're not actually buttons, but they are sew-on crystals, so they have holes for buttons. They have holes to sew them on. So I'm going to see how they do, and they're all a little different. Well, they're not all a little different, but there's some different kinds. So there's going to be like little teardrop ones and stuff. So I think it'll look quite cute and pretty. But the way I'm going to do it is I'm going to sew it on, but then also put a bunch of stitches around the 4 threads, because there's 4 holes. Put around a bunch of stitches around the 4 threads to make a shank. So I'll actually be making my own shank with these buttons. Kind of hard to explain. I might have to do a little video on that one too, because yeah, a bit hard to explain. But yeah, that's the buttons I'm thinking for it. So yeah. The pin things look like a potato. Oh yeah, it's I think it's meant to be a tomato. My mum got me this. It's actually a really great pin cushion. It's made out of wool roving, so loose wool. I think it's needle felted together, and having loose wool, and particularly relatively raw wool that hasn't had all the lanolin stripped from it, is really, really good for pins, because the slight little bit of oil in the wool protects your pins. So pin cushions often are stuffed with like rags of cotton, usually, because people usually sew in cotton. Yeah, they're usually stuffed with all sorts of little rags, but they actually rust your pins because they trap moisture against the metal of your pins. But this, because it's got wool, and like I said, wool with a bit of lanolin in it still, they actually oil your pins. So if you can find one, if you can make one, if you know someone with a sheep, get a bit of the rawest wool you can find. Wash it a bit, because sheep are pretty gnarly. They're pretty dirty. But get a bit, make a pin cushion out of wool. I highly recommend it. Yes, it will preserve your pins for a good long time. Yeah. Thank you for joining. I reckon I'm gonna go get on with my day, have some food, get ready for work and stuff. But thank you so much for joining. I really, really appreciate it. I know this one wasn't really so 3D printing oriented, so thank you so much for sticking with me this whole time. Yeah, I know it's been a journey. Yes, and it's not for everyone. So thank you so much. I really, really have enjoyed this, and you're all awesome. And yeah, I will flick back to what do. Yes. Huge thank you to all my patrons. Thank you so much for all your incredible support. I really, really super appreciate it. Yes, really, really super appreciate it. You help me fund projects, and yeah, I still want to be giving back to the community. I know I've been a bit quiet lately. I've been kind of withdrawn. I think I'm coming back out of that shell. Yeah, so hopefully I'll keep this ticking along. And yeah, thank you so much. And yeah, if you want to hang out with me when I'm not on YouTube, I do enjoy hanging out on the Discords and the Twitters quite a lot. So I popped links to those in the description. So if you're not on the Discord already, I reckon probably most of you are, but if you're not, come join us, because it's good fun. Really lovely people, and we're always making stuff, and yeah, it's real good. So come hang out. And yeah, have a lovely evening or day or whatever time of the day night cycle that it is where you are. And yeah, I will see you real soon. Bye, beautiful people. Oh.